Good morning and welcome to the At Home with Roby show. I'm Ashley Davis along with Trent Haston, President and CEO of the Roby family of companies. We're your hosts. Thanks for spending your Sunday morning with us. Whether you're in the car or on the couch, you're always at home with Roby. Visit us today at andrewroby.com. That's Andrew, ROBY.com. Or always give us a call at 704-334-5477. Trent, good morning. It's another great week in Charlotte, another great week at WBT. We got an incredible show coming up. WBT is a historic landmark in Charlotte, and that's what we're talking about today with our show.
History. Yeah, history's a great thing. Growing up, I inherited taking pride in historical projects. So today's show, I think we have a client that we worked on his house multiple times, his family's home in Davidson, Mr. Craig Heavey, and the architect own his home over these multiple projects to bring it back to life and create new with the history is Lindsay Daniel Architecture. So just a lot of good stuff going on today.
It's going to be a great show. I was talking to Craig a little bit out in the hallway before we started, and if you're listening, you want to stay with us through this next break, and when he comes on in a couple of segments. Not only is it a historical renovation, but they moved this house in Davidson. Couple hundred, I think 150 feet, then another 400 feet or something. He'll tell the whole story. But that's you see these houses move sometimes on TV, and then you meet somebody that actually moved one, lives in one. It's pretty interesting.
I had actually forgotten that, but yeah, when I was growing up, so when I was about 8-9 years old, we had a run. We were working for the Springs, the Close family down in Fort Mill, South Carolina. And we had the opportunity, and like I said, I was 8 or 9 years old. We did the Springs guest house, which is where Bill Clinton stayed when he came to town, and I worked there through my low teens and I'd go knock around with my dad on Saturday. We also renovated the historical Founders House down in Springs and down in Fort Mill for the Springs business. And that's where their guests would stay when they would come business-wise, and it's still there. It's on the main road in Fort Mill. But Dad used to tell the story. We got to do that house twice because they got about 85% of the way done, and it burnt. And Dad used to say, when I got older, I appreciated him telling me this story, and I went back and I was culling out more information as it intrigued me. But I said, what did you do? And it was actually ended up being a volunteer firefighter had set the fire to be the hero to report the fire.
Really?
But of course we were about 85% of the way done with this $1.5 historic renovation of the Founders House, and it burns literally to the ground. I asked Dad, what he said. Man, he said, I remember sitting at Hardee's about 5 o'clock in the morning with Ken Laney, and Ken Laney was our superintendent, and that was his baby. I mean, that was his full-time job. He said we were sitting there just holding our head. He said we didn't know what we were going to do. The target was on them,
yeah.
And it was all over the news. But about a couple days later, about a week later, it came out that a firefighter had done it. So we got to do it again. I don't know if that's still good. You still get kind of it still smells like soot when you're done.
Yeah. No. It's interesting. We talk a lot about renovations, and if you're listening out there, you're listening to the At Home with Roby show, call us today. If you have a historic home or you're thinking about buying one, you want to renovate it, call us at 704-334-5477. But Trent, when you talk about renovations, what's the difference between renovating a home and renovating a historic home?
About double the cost.
About double the cost. And don't set it on fire.
I meet people all the time, they're like, man, I want to use old wood, and we can save some money using old wood. I'm like, no way. You're going to triple your money using old wood. It'd be cool. But, no, I just like historic, and our version of historic is not really historic. I mean, you go to the old world over in Europe, and thousands of years old. We're doing hundreds of years, but our stuff's wood, their stuff was stone, so it kind of ages. A piece of wood that's a couple hundred years old, in my opinion, is like a piece of stone that's 2,000 years
right.
old. So, and it's more malleable. But I don't know. I've just always enjoyed it. We hang our hat on doing it. We like to search out historic work. We like when the opportunity arises. When I was a kid, we also, I think it was on North Tryon, did the historic Rosedale House. I remember playing around there, and then we did the historic Carr House, which is a yellow house over about 2 blocks over from the courthouse on McDowell Street. And we did that in the 70s. My dad was actually a carpenter on that job. And then in about 30 years later, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, we redid it for the owner now. A law firm's in there, Brad Smith and his firm. So that's pretty cool to do a historic house,
right.
Come back, win awards in the 70s, and I got to see those on the walls, and then come back 30 years later and get to touch it again.
It is nice to be a part of that because Charlotte has changed so much, and there's so much new architecture that when you get into places, some of these historic designated areas like a Dilworth or Myers Park, where people want to retain that history, that's neat to be a part of.
Well, you know, we talk a lot about on the show about how what makes stuff cool is when you look at it and you don't know why you like it so much. Mm-hmm. That's what makes architecture so cool. I'm looking across the room to Lindsay, but that's what intrigues me. This week I had breakfast with 4 of our guys that have been with us a long time. Actually, for one reason or another, left the company, came back to the company, took them to breakfast, sat down with them. It was great. I mean, that's the heart of what we're about. One of the fellas said, I am here because I love doing high-end craftsmanship quality. He said, I love the 5-piece moldings, and you know, that resonates. And with historical, you get that because 100, 150 years ago, labor was cheaper, so they could keep putting pieces of wood up.
That high-end renovation is what Andrew Roby is all about. All right, Trent, we're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Lindsay Daniel of Lindsay Daniel Architecture. We're going to talk more about historic home renovations. You're listening to the At Home with Roby show. Visit us today at andrewroby.com, or you can always go to wbt.com and click on the At Home with Roby page. Stay with us. We'll be right back.